You are listening to Vitality with Marilyne, a podcast about health, wellness, and all things vitality. Having set herself free from life routines, embraced a healthy lifestyle, and lost an incredible 90 pounds in under a year, Marilyne is now supporting others looking to live their best life. Here to tell her transformative story and engage in enlightening and inspirational conversations, here she is, Marilyne.
All right, so I'd like to discuss my fitness progress with you and look back to where I started. So in June, before I started everything, I went from not moving, like basically working from home. It's a pandemic. We're still in lockdown, not moving. Like where I was not moving to being now very active. I feel, it's night and day. So we can discuss basically your kind of assessment of where I was in terms of fitness, and also kind of like how I got to where I am. Because yes, I did put in some work by myself and I do own most of the credit. But there was some things that I assume are very intentional about taking someone from basically like step one to where we're at. And also just to put things like to explain, it never really felt like it was too hard, but it was always challenging and never like the exercise program always felt doable. So I think that is credit that you can take. But if you can talk about like, where I was at and what, like, how did I get from there to here, in your opinion?
Okay. Well, so yeah, when we started out, so of course the injury progress is a big thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we started, there were certain movements that just really aggravated that neck shoulder. So there were some movements like overhead movements and rowing movements, anything that kind of tugged at the shoulder blade always bugged you. So very happy that you took because that was taken care of by your effort, but also like the professionals that know.
But in those sessions, you adjusted like quickly.
Yeah. So I mean, that's something. Yeah. I mean, with time and experience, I definitely just because one movement aggravates a certain injury or dysfunction or imbalance, that is where I come in. It doesn't mean you just give up. We just work around it. So yeah, I guess at the beginning we did work around things a little bit. I mean, even throughout, as we've lifted heavier and heavier, there's been days where it's just like, this isn't worth risking a few days of bad pain, right? Or migraine or whatever. So, but in terms of your progress, so like there are a few things, I mean, there are many things that are measurable, but one thing that comes to mind, I mean, you were always, you were stronger than probably you'd like you would have been aware or like admitted, even day one, like looking back at the data that I did collect. You were quite strong. I think that's a nice thing about that intake day. I know I'm wandering off topic. I'll get back to it. But like in terms of the whole confidence thing, and you touched on this earlier, that when I walk into someone's home, there is a vulnerability for that person, right? Yeah, you're probably tentative. You're deciding to take your health into your own hands, to make some change. And I totally understand that. So like, again, me kind of making you feel comfortable, but also like that we're going to do something about this. And like, you have the ability to do that. Like instilling that confidence is super important.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, but yeah, like, I mean, you've like your consistency has been so good that like, it's just basically been a textbook improvement. So like for instance, day one, I mean your wrists were always an issue, so we've worked around
Still
that,
are.
just putting weight on them. But I think you were doing 5 push-ups from your knees, and at that that may be generous in terms of form and stuff, but and we haven't honestly like worked a ton on push-ups, because I do like there's enough things we do on the hands, and you have the equipment to train the chest and triceps and like that movement other ways. So like even without really working on push-ups that much, I think say like a month ago when we did push-ups from the knees, you were crushing like 25 reps for 3 sets. So measurably, I've seen just like a really big improvement. I should have written this down, but we do have our like strength chart for kind of a more traditional strength routine that we've done weekly. And I mean, I could kind of ballpark that we started, we started chest press maybe with like 15 pounds per hand, so 30 pounds total. And I mean, just weekly, you've been able to make improvements week to week to week. We've been able to either increase the load through reps of the same weight, and then every 2-3 weeks we're going up in weight to the point where you're going to run out of weight.
Yeah.
And then you're going to need a new gym.
Oh no, I got the equipment. So anyway,
but just not everything
started 20 each hands, and then well, it's debatable sometimes.
Some things you've
90,
made more progress than others, like
90 pounds sometimes, but so that's the interesting thing, which I mean, it deviates, but that is also part of the game of you're working up and then having to think about going backwards.
Yeah, and that is the benefit of having a trainer as well.
Yeah,
like back to
definitely.
that point is like,
and then
knowing when, and knowing when. Okay, we should just ease on this for today, because your body's giving you feedback, and you should usually listen to that. And like, then you tend to get frustrated or discouraged, and that's where I come in, and I'm like, listen, one day is not a big deal. Like, look at the like the overall trend, and like focus on that. Don't worry about minor setbacks, because there's always going to be minor setbacks. You're not going to be at peak performance every single day, every single workout when you're working out 4 or 5 days a week, right? You're going to have days where you're more tired, and like strength gains are linear over time, but that doesn't mean just like any chart, right? Like there's variability. There's going to be down days, up days, but the overall progression is moving in the right direction. And like, this is something that hasn't come up, and maybe not on topic for this, but I always say like intention is so important, right? So exercise needs to be intentional. Just like anything in life, you can go through the movements, but if it's not intentional, you're not going to get that same benefit. So like the body, like I always say, like your body is going to figure out how to achieve a task, but without that intention and that cueing, whether external from me or like internal as you gain more experience, then you'll either end up injuring yourself or just not getting that like the proper muscle activation and the benefit of the exercise, like the intention of the exercise that you're doing.
Yeah. So definitely the strength chart does show huge progress in terms of the weight. I can squat, bench press, RDL, rows, all that.
Yeah.
But there's also, like you were talking about earlier about the toning. So the muscle all over, I mean, it's night and day. Like realistically, like I started from, is like how did I actually, because I mean, I have a personal trainer, so I haven't been thinking about it much until now. But like, how does one can like go from that to this? Like we talked about consistency. But like what I want viewers to understand is one, that it's feasible, and it was pretty significant. And I was lucky that I was probably just naturally strong, I guess. So weight always felt good to lift.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, like the progress, the ability for a body to transform itself from where I was to where I am is kind of like what I'm interested in.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course that is intentional. I mean, basically, so, I mean, there's lots of different ways to like get us moving, and, you know, what you're like based on your goals or someone else's goals, then what we do is going to be different. So like, back to the point of like I feel like I didn't really answer in depth about like the benefits of exercise, but just like everything from like, you know, joint health, like if you look at basically any disease state that, you know, morbidity or mortality increases with age, exercise has been shown through studies to help with them. Heart disease, cancers, you name it, right? Like anything associated with aging, exercise is going to benefit that. So like to that point, like it's not all, you know, like not everybody necessarily wants to build muscles. I mean, that's going to be a byproduct of exercising anyways. But I guess to touch on your question, you know, the type of training typically we've done, or that's kind of responsible for that muscle growth, is just, you know, by design, we're working kind of in a hypertrophy. So hypertrophy is just a word for muscle growth in size, like a greater number of muscle fibers and larger muscle fibers. So we're training in kind of a hypertrophy range, kind of sometimes the upper limits of it, but like in that kind of like, well, for us, like that 10 to 15 rep range, trying to usually go to failure. So like where you can't push that extra rep. Now, I mean, if you're really strictly, you know, trying to break down that muscle, you're going to always want to go to failure. I definitely were able to do that. Like I'm able to do that with you because you're like willing and able. It's not the case with everybody I work with. Some people will not go to that failure where they literally cannot lift the weight or do another rep.
It's an interesting feeling.
Yeah. So that's going to be what you want to do and how you want to train if you're looking to build that muscle most effectively.
Yeah.
And strength.
But there's a way that you pair the exercise that is fascinating to me because I've done this.
Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, I'm a big fan, like both when I train and train with my clients, of almost always doing supersets. So supersets is just pairing 2 or more exercises back to back. And there's a number of different ways. But typically, you know, especially to kind of try to get more fat burning in your workout and keep you moving. So like, you know, there's a standard way of weight training, you know, bodybuilding, where you're doing a lot of volume, so a lot of sets, and you're taking a lot of rest so that you can achieve that muscle overload. So like if you don't take enough rest in between sets in that mode of training, you're just not going to push as many reps the next and the next and the next if you don't let your body rest. So that's like a very involved and like time consuming way of training. And most people I work with are not, you know, we only have an hour. So, you know, I want to do more than 4 exercises. Unless that's absolutely what my client wants. Of course, I'm going to do that. But you can still achieve like overload and then also kind of keep that heart rate up by doing supersets, to answer your question. So for instance, like if you really wanted to overload a muscle group, you could superset the same muscle group again, you might tire quicker and then kind of not get that benefit of the superset, like that cardiovascular effort. But with you, often I'll pair like, and not necessarily antagonistic muscle groups, but like different muscle groups. So we'll do like an upper body, lower body, and then maybe a core, or like an upper body, lower body, other upper body, rest, repeat, right? So basically, yeah, that is like, I'm a big proponent of given just, the way that most personal training sessions are structured, right? It's like a time versus when I exercise on my own, the time varies, right? But we're always in an hour, and I just, I want to give you the most I can in that hour without ideally overcomplicating things, or like,
but
doing a million exercises, different exercises in that hour. But
it's a formula that works, and it doesn't just work because of the results. But because an hour can be long of exercising. I mean, it's not a full hour of go.
Yeah.
But I have not, rarely felt like, oh my God, is this almost over?
Yeah.
And that is like, I don't know how you do it, because like some of them are not enjoyable, but they're paired in a way that makes it fine. Like there's often one that if one's really rough, the second one's not.
And to your point of like compatibility, both like personality wise, but like like how you like to exercise wise, like that's important for me to get a grasp. And you told me on day one, kind of you're like, you tend to get bored if you do the same program over and over and over and over. So I made a point from day one to keep things fresh. Like we were, probably at the beginning, we were just kind of getting into the swing of things, right? Like working on movements, getting form down and stuff. So like every single workout for like probably a month or so was unique, I think.
Yeah.
And then once we kind of, got comfortable and went through a lot of different movements, working on your form and everything, that's when we settled down to more of a 2-week program and moving on. And some might say that's also a little bit quick, but again, what keeps you exercising, right? Like, would you keep exercising if we had like a 6 to 8 week program that was exactly the same? You would, I mean, that would produce excellent results, but is the what's the word I'm looking for?
Enjoyment.
Well, enjoyment, but like the ability to stick with it. There is a word for that I should know. And do know. But I can't think of it.
No,
right?
it was very important to me. And there's something with constantly knowing the anticipation of the things that you really dislike is coming up that just deflates.
So I just keep you in the dark.
Yeah.
And
I'm okay.
You
like
don't
the
have
2
time.
weeks.
You don't have time to expect.
Yeah. And I'm cool with that. I'm good with that. Yeah. But I mean, even though they're changing every 2 weeks, most like they're still targeting the same.
Yeah. Even if just because you're changing exercises, it doesn't mean that the intent and like what we're working on is changing, right? There's thousands and thousands of exercises. And just different ways of targeting different muscle groups.
Yeah. I mean, one of the benefits of working with a personal trainer that I did not mention is that was very specific to my wants. It wasn't a need.
Yeah.
That, if I was to work out on my own, I would be doing the same thing over and over, because otherwise you have to relearn what to do and do the most simplistic.
And like, that's also why, our Friday/Saturday workout, I kept, because I got to take in when I meet someone new, I'm going to take in, sometimes I'll override and decide what's best for my clients, but like, it's very important that I take in to great consideration what's going to keep you training, right? And like make you stick with it. So if I completely ignore what you asked, which was like to keep things fresh and stuff, but that's when, we came to like a middle ground where I was like, okay, we're going to do like a traditional strength workout, 6 exercises, chest press, squats, rows, overhead press, RDLs, split squats. And in that sense, we kind of had like, you know, you had like the ongoing cycle of that workout while keeping things fresh the rest of the week, right?
Yeah. And I didn't mind that because the strength exercise I've enjoyed.
Yeah. And like while, you know, if we're doing something different every couple of weeks, you know, you might not specifically see the progress, whereas that gives us an ongoing measuring stick of progress for you, for like, you know, to look back and see how far you've come and keep you motivated and, you know, make you proud of what you've done. Like, wow, I can lift this much weight now. That's crazy.
Does it get challenging though? Like working like with somebody like me that's gone from, you know, kind of beginner to where, I mean, I'm not advanced or
I can't say it was, just because like I've said today, like you've been intrinsically motivated to do this on your own. I don't have to nag you. I don't have to be like, why am I putting in the effort when you're not, you know, for nothing, because I'm putting in the effort and you're putting in more effort and you're getting the results, and that makes me happy. So like, you know, I can't say it's been, I mean, yeah, it has not, you know, I've dealt with a lot more challenges in different situations for sure.
We haven't had the awkward conversation of saying, stop canceling or I'm going to give up your spot.
I think in the last 9 months, I don't think you've canceled on me once, which is insane in my field of work. And I think I let you down once.
It's not a letdown. You canceled.
I think I canceled on you once.
Yeah,
we have
a winter storm.
I mean, it's a give and take, right? Like, to the accountability, like I'm going to show up. If you tell me not to show up, it's not really in your, you know, it's working against what we're both working against. So consistency is key.
Yeah. Well, it's been easy to be consistent.
Yeah.
So. I guess we may have touched on this one, but why do you think I've been successful working towards my fitness goals and overall health goals? Consistency, we've covered.
I mean, consistency is the key. Like you've been driven. I think you understand what it takes. I think you understand, you know, this is consistency, but like you've got to stick with the rules that you set for yourself. So like eating has been probably the biggest part, and I haven't even been a part of that, which is amazing because you just know what you need to do and you do it and you keep to your rules and you don't cheat, and you know, like that's the key to success and change. It's like the little things. Like if I do, like often when I do kind of consult on nutrition, we'll take a look, like, you know, they'll write out 3-day food journal or something, and I'll take a look and I'll say, you know, this you should probably do without, like little changes. And we discussed this the other day, like the 1% rule, right? Like make little rules. Like not everything needs to be all or nothing. And I'm a big believer in that. And that's probably why I'm not like 8% body fat, because you got to enjoy, you know, if nothing is enjoyable, then it's going to be really hard to stick with something, right? Like you got to enjoy what you're doing, and like little changes add up to big change. And like the 1% rule, right? Like you don't have to dramatically change everything at once, but you can change a few little things and then change a few more little things. Yeah. You know, like, you know, in terms of that, like, that approach to nutrition, it's just not overwhelming, you know, like for sure going, like giving a meal plan to someone to produce like 100% will produce results. Not everyone's going to follow that. So like if someone's committed to following that, then you're going to get great results, but not everybody is going to follow that.
Might not be
or be able to just endure that. Yeah. So I'm just a big fan of like cutting little things out. So like, you know, you have coffee every morning. What do you put in your coffee? Maybe you shouldn't, right? Like cut the cream or cut the sugar. You don't even have to cut both at once. I'd say cut the sugar 100%. But yeah, just those little changes, like, you know, really add up and back what you asked me, that wasn't really answering the
Well, you said, why, well, the question was, why do you think I was successful? And you said consistency. And I want to point out, though, because I wasn't always consistent. Like, I started this, like, not moving, 265 pounds. So, and I thought I'm just, I'm a procrastinator. I, don't keep up. And I was a person with a personal trainer before that was canceling, and she wasn't that far. And I was saying, oh, well, today I don't feel great, whatever.
Yeah.
And had all the reasons. So it's not who you are that, like, you can be consistent. It's the mind shift that you need to work on. It's not necessarily motivation, or like motivation comes with your mindset. So even though, you make me sound like this very like disciplined, very like rigid or following all the rules, but it hasn't been my experience. But I've been able to do it this time because I've been surrounded by experts, because I've been doing it for my health, because I found ways that worked for me. And just like you said, like I figured out the nutrition that worked for me, made a lot of little changes along the way that made a big difference. And for the fitness is I did rely on you quite a bit to help me figure it out. But I think, if there's any takeaway, like that was because I like really took the time to think about and got to know who I am and my strengths and what I like. I work well when I'm supported by professionals. I like having a team around and feeling like I'm well equipped to achieve my goals, and then it makes it all easier to be consistent and so on. So
I think people need to, need to embrace and get the help that they need. For sure. Is what you're kind of saying, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And finding those right people and listening to people who might know a little bit more about certain things than you, and
Yeah, and like get to know yourself, honestly. Like it sounds silly because, at 38 years old you should know, but no, you're always evolving and you're always changing. And if I was to say, oh, they say that exercising at 6 a.m. or first thing in the morning is the best thing, it's not ever gonna work for me. I'm not a morning person. So there's all these things. That's a small thing, but when you're starting to know how your patterns are or your motivations are, then you can actually make the sustainable changes.
Yeah, I think flexibility is key.
Yeah, for sure.
Like rigidity is, some people can handle it, but oftentimes it will lead to either termination or inconsistency or just relapse, right?
But it depends on the personality, right?
Yeah.
My husband's been doing the same workout every day for 3 years, and he's gotten good results. I could never do that. Yeah. Does the same thing.
Everybody is different.
Yeah. I think we've covered my progress. And I think pictures and so on. And that's something I'll keep updating. Also, if people are interested in seeing. Now that the weight loss, getting to be closer to the finish line. It's going to be a lot more about fitness and showing kind of that progress. So I'll have to figure out some ways to measure that a bit more.
Yeah. And as progress and change happens, then your goals are also going to change. So it's important, like you did the other week or last week. Monday, or this week.
Yeah. This week.
Was communicate to me, because ultimately your trainer works for you. You shouldn't be afraid of hurting feelings or anything. Just if you want to change, that's your prerogative, and that's my job to sit down and kind of see what that looks like to you, and then make those changes.
So we've talked about injuries here and there, but I want to bring back the topic about it. So the injuries can be scary and prevent people from even wanting to exercise. We've all heard about, the runners that injured their knees or, everything.
Yeah.
So I've mentioned my neck, my back, my migraines and so on. So we've had to work around a lot of injuries also, and also old injuries. You've mentioned my wrist, and my ankle has been a challenge. So can you talk about how people can, one, gain confidence to say exercise is good for you even though you have injuries, and then also know that they can how can they safely work around existing injuries, and kind of the approach to that?
Yeah, I mean that's where like knowledge comes in, and like where I can, definitely help with not everybody, like the average person is not gonna know what to do or what to avoid. I mean, intuitively, if you've injured something, avoid movements that hurt, right? Identifying what's good pain, what's bad pain, and not fighting through that bad pain. Mm-hmm. So I think intuitively people would avoid that, but that doesn't mean you need to stop everything. Yeah. So for instance, like I've had like a shoulder impingement from lifting weights, and yeah, it sucks. And like you shouldn't just give up, right? Like your shoulder will not impact any typically like lower body movements. So like you can always pivot, and yeah, maybe you'll stall your progress in certain movements, but you can always pivot and like keep moving. That's the important thing. Yeah. But just knowing, like with an impingement, I had to kind of stop doing things overhead. Just figuring out what movements you still can do safely. Is a big part of what I do. What we can kind of do to rehab those if we know, and that's where it comes. Like I can't diagnose anything for you. Like even if I think I can, I'm not allowed to. Okay, so that's the limitations of a kinesiologist. I can identify dysfunctions. So like we do often talk about like, yeah, I think this is overactive, this is underactive, like if you really simplify things. So like anyways, even if I can't diagnose, I can kind of recognize what we need to avoid, but then also just kind of pivot and do some exercises that will maybe complement that movement, or just help you like help rehab, or at least kind of keep training. For instance, say you have like bicep tendonitis, right? And like rowing is aggravating that, and that's the main way, like say that's the main way that you typically are training your back. Like we can work, different like reverse flies or T squeezes or T raises, or train the shoulder blades in other ways so that you're not just avoiding the area altogether. You're just taking a break from that movement that's particularly irritating. Because a rowing motion is a compound motion that uses your biceps secondarily to your shoulder blade muscles.
And the rehab piece is important too. Because I feel like the workouts definitely helped me with my neck and back, because straightening the back was part of the whole strategy. Mm-hmm. And what's been extremely helpful is, I was fortunate because you're the one who referred the physiotherapist, and you kind of bounced back and forth between the two, because I felt very well supported in terms of the injuries. Yeah. So that's another kind of huge benefit that I've had. And anytime, and I don't, and it's even weird for me to say like to put the word injury, but it was pretty significant when I met with the physiotherapist. You're right, like the whole diagnosis, it was like basically, and the chiropractor all said like it was rock hard, kind of no movement, and now it's functioning quite well. Yeah. So that too, in terms of the exercising, while personal training wasn't my goal wasn't to do rehab, but it has definitely been part of it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you seeking out one thing has definitely had like a cascading effect
Yes.
of helping you in many, like
Yeah.
helping you through a lot of different kind of chronic issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know like a lot of people are dealing with back pains or neck and shoulders, and to get back to my initial point, like the initial reaction is like, okay, well, I can't work out. So I guess the moral of the story is like, yes, it is possible.
Yeah.
If you're
Well, and like talking about injuries or pain, like one of the thing where I come in handy is like something that comes to mind is, you said back pain. So someone working out on their own, say just doing a plank, okay? And what, they might say, I can't do this plank because it makes my back hurt. And then I say, okay, I think I know why, because I'm looking at that, and you're doing that plank maybe with that low back sagging and a bit of anterior tilt, which is not using your abs at all. So I go, that's where a cue comes in that you might not have thought of, where I say tuck that pelvis, squeeze the glutes, pull the abs in, tailbone down, and then I'm like, does your back still hurt? And they usually will say no. No, that feels better. Yeah. So, that whole like kind of pain and avoiding exercises, some, like I'm not saying there's always a fix or an easy fix that I can just like magically say, but there are, circumstances like that where, just basically comes to how you're exercising, right?
Yeah. And I guess like I'm assuming in other cases like mine, exercise actually help you get better and remove some of the pressure and the pain and get your body functioning properly.
Yes. So. I mean, honestly, other than like traumatic injury, like most pain and dysfunction, I'm going to go out on a limb here, real cocky, like can be solved through exercise and through the right coaching. And ultimately, like that pain is coming from being sedentary and from not moving. Movement is like so often the solution to pain. I'm not saying everything. Obviously, like there's different conditions that cause pain or injuries that we shouldn't be necessarily exercising through, but there's so much pain that can be solved just by moving regularly.
You just gotta tough it out for a few weeks because it feels awful for a while. I don't know.
Don't say that.
Well, tough it out. It gets better. And then you get
in terms of pain too, right? Like identifying the right pain and the wrong pain. So like so often when I'm helping someone stretch, they don't want to do it because it hurts, but like knowing and getting comfortable that this stretching pain is good.
Yep.
Stretching hurts, but I don't like saying that because it doesn't. I like to say more like it's uncomfortable, right? Even though it does hurt, it's not bad. It's usually not bad pain. So like understanding or having somebody to help you understand what's good pain, what's bad pain.
Yeah, well, that is really hard to determine. And we talk about that all the time because I live in fear of going back to the way it was and triggering migraines and so on and re-injuring some things or making things worse. So it is hard to decipher which pain is a good pain versus a bad pain because I'm all for pushing the limits and
even sometimes I say, how's that feeling? You say, I say, stop if you need to, and you've gotten better. Or like sometimes I just shut it down and I say we're not doing any more of those today because we and like even with doing that we've made incredible progress. You've made incredible progress. So
you were
like
fine.
I said, you don't need to be
did.
discouraged because you didn't get that third set in of whatever because you probably avoided a headache for the rest of the day. So you gotta know when to push it and when to maybe
and on
put
your
the
own
brakes on.
Is there anything though you say like these types of pain in this part of the body abort, like if you feel pain it's always bad pain or it really depends? Like things to watch.
It's hard, like stabbing pain. So like, again, these are all like subjective, vague, like pain is not measurable, right? It, like even you go to the emergency room, it's like, what is this on a scale of 1 to 10? You're like, I don't know, because I don't know if I felt 10 pain, right? Like, usually if you say 8, they're like, yeah, it's not much. Like, unless it's a 10, you're not hurt. Anyways,
You're waiting 5 hours.
what was the question?
It was like, how is there any tips
so
on
like
to
stabbing, sharp pains, is what you want to definitely avoid. I mean, it's a tricky thing that comes with experience. Like at this point, and I through know probably what's going to be a bad pain.
Yeah.
Because you've pushed through it, and then you've experienced the negative repercussions, right? So a lot of it is learning, trial and error. I mean, I'd always err on the side of caution, because like when I've pushed through things that I know I shouldn't have in the past, I regret it. Like if you do, like, say you're doing deadlifts or something, and you do 5 reps, no pain, then you feel like on the 6th rep a little tweak in your back or something. Yeah, put down the weight, like that kind of thing.
I feel like pain, the back and the shoulders.
Yeah, and like if you're training often to failure to break down your muscle, and you're getting that muscle soreness, that's not bad pain.
Yeah, you
right?
want that.
I mean, it's not necessarily always fun, but there's like a certain sense of achievement that comes with it, right? Yeah. So it's like it's not for everybody. Like I don't have everybody I work with and have worked with in the past has not trained to the extent of getting that muscle soreness. Some people they absolutely need that, so I plan accordingly, and like some people just don't need that, and there are other benefits of exercise, like we touched on, that don't involve a huge amount of like hypertrophy, muscle growth.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a need for me, but I definitely feel the sense of accomplishment the next day when it's
like a badge of honor.
Especially for core, they need to hurt because it's not fun. For me.
Yeah, you always say, if I'm gonna put the work in, I want to be sore. I don't like core days.
Well, and it was always about being efficient in the workout. So I'll put in the work, but I'll put in the maximum effort.
Yeah.
For the outputs, right? And so it's funny when you say people need that. Well, it's not a need as much as a want.
Well, like, I mean, if you're paying good money to have someone come, you don't want to feel like that hour was wasted.
Yeah, like it's something I could have just Googled.
Yeah.
No pressure.
always got to keep the pressure on your trainer.
Yeah. Well, I try. So that's good. I think we covered. So basically, bottom line, if you have injuries or scared of injuries, definitely working with a personal trainer is a good idea. And while I feel like our brains, when we experience any kind of pain, it says abort, don't do it, don't continue. There's a bit of, I guess, space for self-talk in there and saying, well, is this a good pain, bad pain? And realistically, it's part of the process of being uncomfortable, of being not overly, like, for it not to feel great so that you can progress. And
yeah, any change is going to be uncomfortable, until it eventually becomes comfortable.
And then
but then you got to make it more uncomfortable.
I know, right? It's a sick joke sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, you become more comfortable with being uncomfortable.
True. And here I am. This is not something I would have done. So a few months ago, no. But definitely movement is a good thing, because I feel like you just get more injured by not moving.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fine balance, right?
Yeah. Everything is.
But like movement. So for instance, I'm sure we've all suffered injuries, and I had an old volleyball injury where I strained a ligament in my back, which was not pleasant at all. And it flares up every once in a while. And often that flares up when you're not active. So I know I need to get my core firing, and I know I need to get my glutes firing. So I know exercises that help me get rid of those nagging injuries. And hopefully, if I'm working with a client enough, like I begin to kind of realize those, help them realize those things as well, so they can find that they can find those solutions for those nagging things. And just another evidence of like moving versus not moving, like inevitably, because I'm an in-home trainer, I'm driving a good portion of the day, and it's sitting, and at that, not necessarily ergonomically correct. So like I pinched something in my neck and shoulder as we do like a week ago, and it's just been giving me a headache nonstop. Aww. And you can't always, like we just can't always be moving, but just like evidence to the fact that moving does help remedy these certain day-to-day aches that come from not moving, is like every time I do a workout, I feel like the headache has gone away. And not to say that solved the problem, because then I've woken up again with the headache, but it just goes to show that movement should not be avoided at all times and with all pains. I can't give you like a rule book to follow, but
it doesn't need to be complicated, right? So we've talked about like your experience as a personal trainer, but you're also a runner. Well, you've run.
I've run a couple of races.
But, and I feel like walking was like the perfect thing for me to start. And I continued, and I like, because it's also easy to progress with it a bit further, a bit longer, more like faster, or anything like longer in time. I guess further and longer is the same, but just increasing the intensity. And then I started kind of jogging a little bit, and then I don't know, can run a little bit. I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's that component too, and because you had offered to help me out with that too, so I'm assuming that you've consulted or you've helped clients out.
I'm not an expert running coach. I'll say that straight up, but yeah, and that's something you've done on your own. Like we have talked about, in help down the road. I think you've maybe kind of wanted to get to a certain place first before doing that, but yeah.
Well, and this is a nice segue to the next topic, which is home gym, which is, my treadmill is part of that. So I think I mentioned that I had built my home gym, and I recently built it, added to it, and you've been quite helpful in trying to figure out the equipment while I was going through it, because I did invest in my home gym. So I think it's probably pretty common that people have been starting their home gyms, especially with the pandemic and everything. So what equipment do you recommend people start with? Like, what are the basic things? And then when they're thinking about evolving.
Yeah, I mean, I get asked that question all the time. Basically, like any new client, they'll say, I'll always take inventory of what they have. And they'll say, tell me what I need. And then I'll say, honestly, like that's a tricky question, because we can make do with what you have, right? Like I've worked with people who have zero equipment, like maybe one dumbbell and like a set of bands. I guess that's not zero equipment. But I mean, I can make things, obviously the more equipment you have, the more variety you'll have. I could make things effective with just body weight, right? Like some of the craziest like strong people, if you looked on YouTube, just like look up calisthenics, which is just a fancy word for body weight training. Like some of the biggest freaks out there do that, like the human flag poles, and like just there's all yeah. So I mean, I never try to tell someone they need a piece of equipment, because obviously there's like there's fiscal considerations there, right? So, you know, that said, usually a set of resistance bands, a set of like mini bands, you know, maybe 3 different weights of dumbbells. Again, if you have one set of dumbbells will work around it, you know, but
I can build on those too when you buy them as
a stability ball. And again, I'm talking about these things. We'll just introduce more variability, like more variety in the exercises you can perform. So that's a good like home starter kit. And then you don't have to have like a dedicated gym. That could be in like the corner of a room. You have a stability ball, you have a set of dumbbells, you have some bands, mini bands.
mat.
Yeah, mat is not necessary. Mat doesn't add add anything to the workout. But yeah, and then that can, you know, bloom into, you know, often what happens when I start working with somebody, and that's not everybody. Like I've walked into complete like already home gyms and they never added anything to them. But especially the real keeners will start to accumulate. And the longer I work with them, the like, should I get this? I'm like, sure. And then as you get stronger, obviously you want more weight and more weight and more weight. And yeah. So all that to say, you don't need much to start working on your fitness goals. If buying a few things gives you that kind of edge, gives you that motivation, pushes you over the edge to, you know, to enjoy it a little bit more, then by all means, yeah.
Yeah. So when I started, I had a bench, a ball, the adjustable dumbbells that goes to like 52.5 pounds.
Yeah.
What else did I have?
Yeah, the stepper.
Yeah,
which
the
we
thing,
don't use.
the thing I don't use. Yeah, the
bike.
The Bowflex.
I think.
And I had a stationary bike that I did not use. Then got the resistance bands because you had mentioned it'd be helpful. Yeah. What else I had the ball. Yeah.
And you got
those.
the Aspire.
I got the treadmill first.
Yeah.
I got a really nice treadmill. The Nordic track with the big screen. And that's how I've been training to run because there's all these programs and the iFit basically.
A trainer.
Yeah. Multiple trainers.
You don't need me for that.
Yeah.
Computers are taking my job.
Yeah, but sometimes not super reliable though. Like if my internet connection goes down, it's very disappointing in the middle of a workout.
That's true.
But so I had that, and then I did buy the Inspire Fitness, the cable machine, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's just a different way of, because I really like strength training.
Yeah,
so.
of adding weight and yeah, it's a different form of training than with dumbbells. It gives you some variety, and like with dumbbells, there's an inherent instability, right? So when it boils down to it, when we do usually need to like, when something's giving out, particularly with the chest press, like, because basically, you know, that like your cable machine allows you to train heavier with less risk of something acting up or injuring, just because the degrees of freedom at a joint that are afforded by dumbbells, you know, it can get more challenging in terms of injury risk the higher you go in weight. Whereas that cable is fixed. It's pulling you in one direction, not, you know, you're not necessarily having to stabilize in every direction, right?
Yeah, and my wrists have been like a big reason too, like why I actually bought it, because we had so many limitations. My wrist would give out.
No, it's been a very good solution. For you.
I loved,
and just an effective way of having a lot more weight rather than like, you know, either, I mean, a barbell, but then that's kind of one note, right? And dumbbells, if you just keep getting more and more dumbbells, that takes up a lot of space. So it's an efficient way to train heavier for you.
Yeah. Plus, my space is very limited. So, but I mean, I was looking into squat racks and like the Smith machine, kind of like the different, but then there's limitations on height and so on. So it is definitely good to have help when picking out the equipment, because I mean, you can go like, there's just no limit to what you can put in a home gym. Yeah. But the necessities and
time. I'm sorry, not time. Space.
Money.
Space allow. Money, space. There are limits.
Thank you for tuning in to Vitality with Marilyne. Don't forget to join us on social, get involved in our communities, reach out if you have a powerful story to share, or send us a question you'd like answered. Take care for now, and don't forget to choose active, happy, and free.